What's good, family? Welcome to another episode of Rolam Live. I am here tonight with my good friend, my hero, Diane Bell. Diane, how you feeling today?
I am really good. I'm just realizing I'm getting some sort of echo back, and I'm
Are you?
wondering how
Hold on. Let me see. Testing. You still getting it?
is it? What could I do? Because I'm just getting the sound back. Do I need my headphones in or something?
I don't know. Did you hear it
Hmm.
before? You didn't hear it till we went live?
No.
Interesting. I wonder, let me try to see if I do.
Correct.
It's still doing it. It's still doing it.
Okay, let me see.
How about now?
It's gone. It's gone.
It's gone.
Oh
All right,
no, it's
cool.
still doing it. So
Oh, it's still doing it.
I'm getting like this sort of I'm hearing what we're saying afterwards.
All right. How about now? Can you hear it now? Testing.
It's still doing it's like it's really weird, like, it's playing it back to me later. Do you know what I think it is? Okay, wait, now, let's try. Okay, start
Testing.
again. You know why it was? I just
What?
realized. I had the window open off your YouTube channel because I was trying to check to see if there was some information for me. Anyway,
Yes.
my bad. Sorry,
No,
everybody watching the replay. I don't know, do you edit this afterwards for the replay?
nope.
Sorry.
This is live. We in here.
I
Um,
know, but probably most people watch the replay, so we'll just let people know. Just scroll past the first few minutes.
they'll be fine. Welcome to
They'll
another
figure it
episode
out.
of Bro Lamb Live. I'm here
Woo!
with my hero, my good friend, Diane Bell. Diane, how are you doing tonight? You good?
I'm really good. Thank you. I'm really good. I'm really happy
Good.
to be here. And I'm really happy to be chatting with you because I love chatting with you. You've always just got the best energy and it's always a pleasure.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Diane. We're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about how it's all connected. But before we do that, the first thing that I want to say is if you're watching this right now, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody. And if you want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee. The link is scrolling down at the bottom, buymeacoffee.com/Rolam. So if you want to support, that is how you can do it. Thank you so much. Diane, my first question that I love to ask people, what is inspiring you right now? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What is getting the creative juices going for you right now?
I'm really happy to say that my creative juices are definitely flowing at the moment, which is really, really beautiful because for quite a long time they were not. And it's the funny thing is seasons as an artist, right? And there's seasons where you just sort of think, am I ever going to create something again? Or have I just is it just gone? I went through that for quite a few years. So right now it's kind of back. And I'd almost like to say for me that creativity is just when the channel is sort of open and when something is coming through to me, like the thing that I'm writing right now. I can't say I'm being necessarily, I mean, we can talk about what I'm just inspired by in general in life, and that's another thing, but inspired by for my creativity. I can't explain. It's always to do with sort of like some sort of connection to some sort of source or some sort of thing that I can't really explain. It's not like I'm inspired necessarily by something, it's like, it's just suddenly some ideas start to come through and they start to take hold and then it grows. And right now I'm really in that delicious phase of creating something where it's really magical. Like it's just coming together in this like unforced, really organic way. And I freaking love it. Like I'm like, this is why I love writing screenplays, being in this zone of creativity where I do just feel inspired. And then inspiration is coming from everywhere. Like it's like, poems that I read, it's like a book, it's like a movie that it's like everything is just like coming and just things. And I just get guided by it. And I find myself being guided towards certain things that I wouldn't even expect. But in terms of like, what am I reading that's inspiring me or something like that, or movies? I mean, I have to say, I think the movies like this, the movies of the past year for me have so inspired me. We obviously just had the Academy Awards a couple nights ago. And a lot of people have big feelings about this should have won or that should have won. And I was just like, dude, this is an amazing year of movies. And I felt so happy as a moviegoer going to see these different movies in the cinema in this past year. That was like, wow, like these are great films. These are, these are adult movies about big ideas that are audacious, that are cinematic. And yes, I'm talking about Sinners. I'm talking about One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Train Dreams, Hamnet, all these movies. They're absolutely fantastic movies. And I'm like, they're like indie movies, but in huge budgets, but with indie sensibilities. So I'm inspired by that, like all the things that are going on in the film world. I'm inspired by, I'm reading so many different, I'm always reading so much, and right now I'm reading some books by a feminist author, really from the 90s and early 2000s. She wrote before then too, but the books I'm reading are specifically from the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, called Mary Daly. And she's just blowing my freaking mind, with her ideas. She's so radical in her sort of, in her feminism and in her way of presenting stuff. And that's definitely like charging me up in a great way. So yes, feminist texts, movies, all the things, I'm inspired. Also poems. I love poetry. This is one of my favorite. I'm rereading this book right now. Joy Harjo.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever read this. This is like amazing. There's just so many things. And I am definitely somebody, I'm like a bit of a, I don't know what the word, like a magpie for things when I'm in creative flow, And it would just be like this, that, and all the other, but there's so much to be inspired by.
Yeah. I'm just laughing just because I'm just so used to like listening to you talk. So for everybody who doesn't know, Diane Bell is an amazing screenwriter, an amazing screenwriting teacher. And so I've spent a lot of time just listening to Diane just teach and talk. And I could really just sit here and just watch her talk because I'm just used to watching her talk. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm asking her questions. Let me ask her a question.
Yeah, you can ask me anything. This is your chance. Ask anything.
That's
I'm
it,
a pretty
right?
open book. I'm a pretty open book.
So one question that I would like to ask you is, how do you describe yourself? If you're, introducing yourself or you're talking to people, because I know there's so many different things that you do. From, I know you used to teach yoga, now you're screenwriting, you're teaching screenwriting. So somebody says, what do you do for a living? How do you describe yourself?
I know the question every artist dreads, really.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that all my life. Because I say, like, I've just never had, like, I've never been conventional as a human being. I kind of think of my adult life and I'm like, wow, I don't know how I've pulled it off, but I've never had a conventional job,
Right.
So, and it's always been something I dread when people say, what do you do? It's like,
Right.
yeah, what do? I do whatever the fuck I want, man.
Talk to him.
But, right now, if I'm writing it down, like on tax forms where it says occupation, okay, like any official things, I write screenwriter, director, teacher, online course creator.
Okay.
So that's sort of what I consider myself to be, like, in my own brain, like just for myself, I just think of myself as being an artist.
Yeah. So in that same vein of you being an artist, how do you personally just define creativity?
I mean, creativity for me is alchemy. Like that's how it is for me, how I relate to creativity. It's like we take things from all around us and turn it into something else, right? So we take our pain, we take our suffering, we take our anger, we take our frustrations. We also take our beautiful things and we put them into this kind of process that alchemizes it into something,
Right.
a poem, a story, a screenplay, a film that communicates what's in our heart to somebody else's,
Right.
And in that creates to me some sort of like healing, connection, awareness, something. But for me, creativity is absolutely tied to alchemy, and that's kind of all the creativity that I'm kind of interested in a certain sense, like we're standing here at this moment in 2026 on the brink of this AI thing, and I'm just sort of like, oh, like for me, this is like creativity is a specifically human thing. Like I'm not really interested in reading a poem if it's written by AI.
Right.
It's about a human to human connection.
Right.
And it's about how we take whatever we experience and we put it into the compost. It's like compost into us that like
Right.
grows some little flower that we
Right.
then offer. And it might be a big fancy flower and it might be a little humble flower. It might just be a daisy or a dandelion, but we take the compost of life and turn it into something. That to me is what creativity is.
Yeah, AI has been coming up a lot in my conversations recently, and I was sharing with somebody that I was actually a part of it was like an AI filmmaking workshop, if you will, and I just wanted to go see what the process was. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a fan of AI. You know what I'm saying? In the generative sense.
Mhm.
But I go to the thing and the first thing they do is, we're going to write a script using AI. And so, as a part of the class, I wrote my script using AI, right? It was like a 5-page, whatever. And we got to the end of it. And I just said, I have no connection to this.
Mm.
I'm used to when I write my scripts, I'm putting myself into it. It's a struggle to create. It's the process, right? I don't just love scripts. I love the process that I go through
Yes.
to write
Yeah.
scripts. So you take that process away from me, I don't really want to be a part of it, you know?
You're speaking my language. I'm totally the same. Like I can see AI for certain purposes, and as artists and creatives, it can play a role for us. But in terms of actually doing the work for us, it's just like a hard no. And like I was speaking to somebody, I had this conversation with somebody recently, and she's using it to create things, to create work, to write books with and make music with, and it's really like pro AI. Like this is amazing because it allows her, in her opinion, it's like it allows me to be so creative without the struggle, without the friction. And, I was like, I don't want to say the struggle is the point, but also I know that the struggle is one of the most meaningful parts of it. Like when I work on a script and it's hard and it's not working out, which every writer's been in that position. For me, that's like part of the journey. Like it's part of it, so when I get to the end, like when you work and work on something and eventually you get somewhere where you're like, oh, this is it. There's such a satisfaction, right? And it is from your heart. Like, as I said, because for me, creativity is about like taking this stuff from inside you and turning it into something outside of you that has meaning. And if it's not that, I don't know what it is, like I can't imagine, for instance, like say you win the best original screenplay award at the Oscars, but your screenplay was 90% written by AI. Like what the fuck, do you know
Right.
what I mean? Sorry for the
Oh no, you're
little,
good. You good. You good.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's like really like what is that? Do you stand up there? You feel proud of yourself? I mean, is that your achievement? It's so weird to me. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw and I mentioned this last week as well. I saw a woman in the New York Times said she wrote 200 books in 1 year
Yeah.
using AI, and she made
Yeah.
6 figures. And I see a lot of people up in arms, and they're upset about what she did. And for me, I don't get upset about that because I'm like, you're not doing what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? You're doing something that's completely different than what I'm trying to do. And so I just think it's just an
I do think
interesting.
maybe things should be labeled though. Like, if you're
Yeah.
going to turn out AI, books by AI, then I don't really like, I would feel conned as a reader if I read your book and then I discovered it was actually written by AI. I
Yeah,
don't know
for
if you
sure.
remember a few years ago, there was a thing, it was quite a few years ago now. There was a book came out called Sarah by a person called JT Leroy. Did you hear about this or do you know this?
I don't think I heard about this.
I think they made a documentary later. So I first heard about this book, like a friend of mine recommended it to me. They're like, you have to read this book. It's called Sarah. It's by JT Leroy. They are a transgender person who was the child of a truck stop prostitute, and like their story, like they were abused as a child, and the story, this book is like magical realism, but it's incredible. And you've got to read this. It's the best book. I read it and I was very moved by it and really felt like, wow, this is amazing, JT Leroy. And there was really a moment where JT Leroy, this was like in the early 2000s,
Mm.
where it was like JT Leroy was everywhere, like in all the magazines and, all this. And then people started getting a bit suspicious about like, who this was. And eventually it transpired that it was a complete sham. Like it was being written by this woman who was like in her 30s or 40s who lived in like California or something, and it was like nothing, like it'd be completely fabricated. The whole story, the
Wow.
whole backstory about who the writer was, and what was kind of interesting was I was like, if it was a good book in and of itself, then that in a way shouldn't matter, but it did
Yeah.
matter. It did
Yeah.
matter, and it
Yeah.
immediately destroyed it. You're just like, oh, like it's not then that, and you
Right.
felt conned. And
Right.
I feel that with AI, like I have no desire to read things written by AI. I just have no desire to do it. When
Right.
I'm reading, and you see it everywhere right now, don't you? I mean, like, in social media, Instagram posts, threads posts, whatever, like it feels like half of them are AI, and you can feel it, and the
Right.
minute I feel it, I'm turned off,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just feel like I don't mind if someone wants to write AI books, but I just think they should be labeled AI.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And so I feel like this is sort of connected to that. I was watching one of your interviews, and you were talking about your first film that you wrote and directed that you won
Mm.
your Sundance Awards about, Obsoletia, right?
Mhm.
And you said you wrote that during, or at least you started writing it during the writer's strike.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the things I was thinking about when you said that was, for a lot of people or writers, that would have been like a perilous time, during that strike. And I feel like now it's a little bit different, but it still feels like we're in perilous times, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes I see artists and writers and people, they're saying, "Oh, it's so crazy right now. I can't create. I can't talk about my art." Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, can you talk about how you stay creative in times like these, and why it's important for us to stay creative in these times?
Mm. I mean, for me, perhaps oddly, but I feel like I'm more creative when there's more friction or tension in the world than when things feel easy or light, you
Yeah.
know? And like it's almost like the fuel, and going back to the idea of creativity being a kind of alchemy.
Mm.
Everything that I've written, like just for me, and that Obsolete, I just wrote it for me. It wasn't, it wasn't for a job. It wasn't because I was getting paid to write it. It wasn't because I pitched it somewhere. It was just like something that I wanted to write just for my own whatever, my own
Right.
satisfaction,
You're
right?
enjoying it, right?
My own enjoyment. Everything that I've written that's like that comes from a place of there's something in the world that is really upsetting me, that
Mm.
I can't make sense of, that is frightening me, that is worrying me, that's whatever. And that's exactly how I process it or deal with it and keep my sanity.
Mm.
And Obsoletia, if you see that film, it's really, it's hugely mainly about climate change and impending climate disaster. I wrote this in 2008, and it's kind of creepy, weird how in the film, there's a character scientist who's predicting the imminent end of the world, and it's just like he lays out a sort of time schedule of when things are going to happen and what's going to happen, and it was based on a real scientist. It wasn't like I didn't make this up.
Mm.
And he was his name is James Lovelock. He's the man who came up with the idea of the Gaia theory, the idea that the world is a self-regulating system. And basically, he used to predict things for NASA and stuff in the 70s. Every one of his predictions always came true, you know. So in the early 2000s, he was predicting like everything that's happening right now, climate-wise, he was predicting. And
Wow.
so my film, like I read his stuff then, and that was that thing. I mean, that's where that film really came from. I was like, okay, like if the world really is ending, because he was like, it's actually too late to do anything. Like everything, like we are on the fast track to total mass extinction, including of the human species, basically. And I was like, okay, if that's really true, then what? Like how do I like what do I do? Like how do I deal with this? And that film is that. So I think like for me, and speaking what you said to me before, what you're inspired by,
Mhm.
we started this conversation there. Like what I'm writing about is completely my reaction to what's happening specifically in America, but also in the world right now. It's specific to this time. It is absolutely a reaction to the horrors of this time, of being alive in this time, and of what we're witnessing in this country at this time. Like, I don't want to say that I'm inspired by what's happening, but that's what is, that like my creativity definitely often comes as a reaction to what's happening. It's like, oh, hell no, right? Like, what do
Right.
I do?
Right.
Right. And it's like, and my way of processing that is writing something, because in writing, I can find, if not some peace or some answers, some sort of like catharsis for me in some sense. I mean, writing Obsoletia, and it's funny because a lot of people said about Obsoletia that if you have climate anxiety, that film is the medicine. Right. And it kind of like that's what it was for me. Like I had climate anxiety, and by writing it, I created my own medicine for myself. And if you watch that film, you might understand what I'm talking about. And it's like that's why certain people really responded to it and still love it, because that's what it's about. My second film was, really spurred on by my horror at violence against women, and the fact that like 3 women are killed every day by their partners. Right. So that film really rose out of that and my just insane rage about that and my desire to like, I don't know, scream about it, So,
Right.
so going back to your question right now, I just go like, look, for me as an artist, like this is when we roll up our sleeves and get to work, when things are difficult in whatever way, like let your rage, let your frustration, let your fear be your fuel. Let that be your compost that allows flowers to grow. And I think when you really like just let yourself like feel your fears, feel your anger, whatever it is, but channel it into your work, that's when you make some very vital work, So it's like, it's good for you in your own mental health in moments of, darkness and stress and worry, but it's also ultimately good for other people. That's why it's alchemy.
Yeah. And, I completely agree. I think about the Toni Morrisons and the James Baldwins and the, Octavia Butlers and specifically from a Black person's perspective, right? Like we've always been creating through perilous times, and that's been powerful for us. You know what I'm saying? And so even if you look at history, you turn to fiction to see, well, what was the temperature of this time? What was, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? Like these things, yes, it's fiction, but it speaks to the society and the things happening around, gives it context to what's being created. And so I'm telling creatives all the time, like, now is not the time to shy away. Now is the time to lean in. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. I would 100% agree. And we're all different. Obviously, I know some people, like I work with a lot of different screenwriters and filmmakers, and, some people just, they want to make a nice, light, romantic comedy. And I'm like, yeah, that's great too. It doesn't all have to be, like just who I am, like how my creative, like nerve works. It's that, I have no doubt. It's like, it's definitely like my way of responding to the world around me. But there's some people, we all have different roles to play.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
We need to laugh. We need to have fun things. We need to have scare, like whatever it is for you. And I would just go like, if you're also like, oh, what's the point of writing my silly comedy right now? Because, everything feels so heavy and everything's so dark, it's like, no, we need to laugh. So
that is the point. Right.
Yeah. Like whatever it is that you have to offer the world, like you're giving your special medicine, and it's a two-way thing. I think we all write for ourselves first,
Yes. I completely agree. So switching gears a little bit. So a little bit about me. I was raised as a Christian, and I went through a deconstruction process, right? My dad was a pastor, so I grew up in the church.
Wow.
Really heavy, right? And I came across a book called Living Buddha, Living Christ.
Oh yeah. I love that book.
Yes. And it's by one of your former teachers. Yes. Thich Nhat Hanh. And when I found out that he was one of your teachers, I said, oh, this is why I'm drawn to her. I get it. I wonder, what are some takeaways from your time with him that you use, in your writing, your creativity, or even just life in general?
I don't even know where to start with that because, to be honest, discovering the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh and, learning from him over many years and being in that community for so many years, like is sort of the foundation of everything who I am as a human being now. And I'm just so grateful. Like, and that was, it's funny when I think back to that, because it was I was like practicing yoga, and I'd picked up a yoga magazine. This was in like 1999 or something. And I picked up a yoga magazine, which they weren't as fancy as they are now. Do you know what I mean? Like not as like commercially, like, and I don't know, it's so funny because I think this yoga magazine, it wasn't like, like yoga post kind of things. Anyway, and it had an excerpt from one of his books, and that's how I first discovered his teachings, Thich Nhat Hanh.
Wow.
And, and I read the excerpt and I was like, oh, this is great. And I went to my local bookstore in Edinburgh, Scotland, and they, to look for his books. And I found the book and I pulled it out of the shelf. It was in Waterstones, and put inside the book was this little piece of paper handwritten saying, if you want to meditate in the style of Thich Nhat Hanh, call this number, right? And so I called the number, I know. So I bought the book. It was The Miracle of Mindfulness. And I got home and I called the number, and, it was this lady, Annie. She became my meditation teacher, Annie Mavarika. And she said, come along to the meditation group, and I went there, and I was like, this was exactly what I was looking for. Because it was like, you could be any religion and come and sit. There was no proselytizing. There's no, this is the only way. In fact, they would always say, there are many ways. There's just one of many ways. Like, this is not the only way at all, And I was like, oh, this is fantastic, This is great. Like, we just sit and we meditate together, and I learn these meditations. And, and that was the beginning of it. And it was only a couple of weeks after I discovered that Annie said to me, and Annie was this incredible woman. She was from Chile. She was already in her late 70s at this point. And she had been a Tibetan Buddhist nun for 14 years. So she had done 7 years of silence of yes, it's quite amazing, really. Right. I think she was an incredible woman. She was incredible. And so she told me, Thich Nhat Hanh's going to be in London, next week or something. Do you want to come down with me? And I went down to London with her to see him speak. And that was the first time that I saw him speak. And immediately I was just like, oh, like, this man is just like, my husband says, he's just like, he walks the walk. He is exactly what he says. He's just who he is. You just felt it the minute you saw him, And I'm not someone that's into like gurus or whatever, but I was just like, oh, this guy's just the real deal. And after that, I just did everything I could to be around him as much as I could, like going to the monasteries and being part of the community. And that was like over 10 years of my life, maybe like close to 15 years, of being part of that. How does it inform me? It's like the practice of mindfulness is probably, it just infuses everything about how I live, really. And how I want to live as well, to be present, to be aware, to be awake, to be conscious, to be kind, to be engaged. He just set such a powerful example. And if for anyone who's listening to this and is not familiar with his work, really just check him out, like read a book. And it's not about him ultimately, it's really not about him. But I think he really teaches the tools for how to create peace inside yourself. Yeah. And then if you have peace inside yourself, you can create peace inside your family. And if you can do that, you can do it in, ever bigger circles. And he really showed how to do that to me. When I found his teachings, I was not at peace as a human. Like, I was not at peace at all. I was like really out of balance in so many ways, very like full of a lot of anger and a lot of, like bad self-esteem, like negative self-esteem issues and frustrations. And I was way unbalanced in so many ways.
Yeah.
And his teachings brought me home, and that's like how I, the minute I started reading his words, I just felt like it's like a cool drink of water on a hot day. You're like, oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah. I don't think that answered your question exactly, but
no, it did.
It gives a little background to the whole thing. And honestly, just without doubt, the most significant, person really for me in my life, probably, I would say I just love that man. And I just, sometimes I feel so sad that I'll never get to see him again in this life. And he used to always say, like, oh, don't, because one of his things is there's no death, right? No death, no fear.
Yeah.
He would always say, like, if you look deeply, you'll see me. When you see a yellow flower, you'll see me. When you see this, you'll see me, but I still miss him.
Wow.
His smile, his presence, you see that man smile. He was just a good human. May we all aspire to be that. And it was that thing when he would walk in a room, I swear, it just felt like the actual energy of that room, the level of consciousness would just immediately rise in a very potent way. And it was something that really fascinated me because something that I've observed in life is how powerful negative energy is, right? And this came to me first really in a big way one day when I was in it was in Edinburgh. It was like it was in May and it was a sunny day, which it's after the winter in Scotland, and everyone's like, "Woo! It's a sunny day!" And I was like in my early 20s or something. It was like we all went down to the Meadows. It's this big public park, like the Central Park of Edinburgh. And the Meadows were covered with people having picnics, like all the young people, all the university students. And everyone's having a great time. It was like a music festival or something, there's that many people out. And everyone's just having a great time. It's so happy. And then along came two guys who were drunk and aggressive. And it was like chaos. And I thought it's absolutely fascinating that you can have like hundreds of happy, nice people, right? And just two angry people can ruin it for so many, right? Because if you think of it in the other way, if you have 100 angry people and you get two happy people, those two happy people aren't really going to be able to do much.
Right.
It's not going to have that much impact. And that's why I was like, with Thich Nhat Hanh, I was always fascinated because his energy just felt so like there was an aura, around him that really did actually raise the energy. Like that's how strong his sort of practice was, his embodiment of what he taught, and that's what it really came down to. I think that's why I just always felt that. I was like, wow, like we should all aspire to embody, this level of like mindfulness and awareness. And it's like, I think it is accessible to everybody if we try.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's cool hearing you describe it like that because that's how I felt reading his books.
I know.
I felt like they were giving me the tools to be better. And like you said, it's not about him, but it's
No.
about the principles and
Yeah.
it's the life that he's describing. You know
And
what I
it's the
mean?
way he writes it. It's just his authenticity. Because I think, like, if you read his book, like, it's and that's how he was in person too. It's just like so, like, simple. Like the way he explains
Exactly.
things, the way he says things. He uses such simple language,
Yeah.
and it's just, but it's actually, but it's really considered and truthful. Like you just feel like when you're reading it, you're like, yeah, you're right. And it's so simple, and the practices that he teaches are so simple. I mean, my experience of being at his monasteries too. I had one particular time that I can think of when I was at the at Plum Village in France, which was his main monastery where he spent most of his time. And I was lucky enough to be there at a time when it was like it was mostly monastics there. There weren't that many lay people there. Like I was staying in the hamlet with the nuns, and there was probably 10 nuns to every lay person. So
Right.
in other words, like we're really immersed in their energy,
Right.
and I gotta say, like, you spend time in that community and you're just like, this is sane. And it
Mhm.
makes you realize how insane our world is in general, like there's a peace there, like because they all live that way, right? They just live this way where, I mean, sometimes it's kind of like we're so conditioned to be like going, doing things, getting results. I remember one time I volunteered to help do a deep clean of their kitchen, and it really needed it. And, so there I am up on a ladder, like scrubbing these tiles. And, and the nun comes in, she says, come, let's go now and do something. And I was kind of like, no, I got to finish this, like, because I'm one of those people, like, what, if you tell me to do a job and get it done, like, I'm going to get it done.
Right.
They don't like, they just don't think like that. It's like, his whole thing, do the dishes to do the dishes. You don't do the dishes to get the dishes clean.
Right. Right.
Right. It's, it's this weird shift, but when you actually live there, you actually start to experience, and you drop down and it's like, oh, and then you just get more and more like your nervous system, you just feel more and more at peace. Like, obviously there's just that thing, the quiet, the silence, the consideration from everybody. Everybody just moves slower and is so kind and so thoughtful. And they have all kinds of practices that just support like peace in the community. And then the diet is amazing. They eat such great food. They grow most of their own food and make this incredible food. It's just like, we could all
Yeah.
be living like this,
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the questions that I wrote down I wanted to ask you about was your relationship to ambition. But I don't
Mm.
really think that's really what I want to ask. I think there's something deeper that I want to ask. And I think it's connected to what you just said. Coming out of this tradition and learning about the meditation and the mindfulness and and seeing just some of the ways that they lived, right? But then also, as I've watched you and learned from you, there really is a fierceness about you. There's this tenacity that you have. And so I just wonder, how do you balance that, that mindfulness, but also that yeah, that tenacity that you have, that I call it ambition. I don't know if you call it ambition, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's yeah, it probably is ambition. Um, I do get very single-minded, definitely. Like what I just like I said, like if you said tell me to clean this wall or something, like I'm cleaning it,
All's got to
And I
get
get
clean.
really like I just get really dialed in on something. Like I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
Right, right.
And I get my blinkers on, and I know that I can be fierce, and I know that's what gets has allowed me to get certain things done or allowed certain things to happen. But I try to find in my own life, a balance. I know without any shade of a doubt that magic happens in my life when I have a certain relaxed feeling around myself and around what I'm doing, and I allow things to happen. So I feel like the less striving, the better.
Mm,
And I've experienced these times in my life where I have been extremely lucky, right? Where you go, that's ridiculous. You look back and you're like, how the heck, right? That's just impossible. That's ridiculous.
right.
Like, and you go serendipity, coincidences, all these kinds of things. And I've had that quite a few times at different stages. And I can say, hand on heart, it's just about like when you just drop into alignment with yourself, but with the universe, and you're not pushing and you're not striving,
Mm,
that things will fall into place. And it's finding that balance. And for each of us, I think this is the whole game, to be honest, right? It's first of all deciding what it is that you want,
mm,
whatever it is that you want. And when you decide what you want, it's got to be like what you truly want, not just like what you think you want or what you've been told you want or what you should want, but like, what do you really want? I know for myself, like there was a moment in my life, I was a yoga teacher in Barcelona. I had this little yoga school. That sounds fancy. It was my apartment. Okay. So it wasn't that fancy. It was my
okay.
apartment. And I'm sitting on the floor of my yoga room with my laptop on the floor, right, having a coffee or something. And I'm reading, and I suddenly see this web page. This is like in the year, I don't know, 2003 or something, about the Sundance Institute. And something in my heart and soul just goes, right? Like reading about the screenwriting lab, I'm just like, I just want to go there so much. Like this, like that's it. Like everything in me is just like lights on, you know? And that's what I mean by you just decide what you want. And I was like, I just want to go there. Like, I just want to go to that lab so much. And, so that's the sort of ambition part, right? That's the ambition piece of the puzzle where you're like, that's what I want to do. But then, how do I end up getting there? And I did end up getting there, right? But it's not through like, it's this weird dance, right? Where it's not, just like, okay, I'm getting there and like now I force it. It's just, okay, that is what I really want. So now what? Better finish that script that I've got. Okay, now I finished that script. What can I do to get that script out there? Ooh, I could go up to the Cannes Film Festival and try to meet some people because I don't know anyone in the film industry. Okay, so I go to the Cannes Film Festival. Now I meet some people, and it's like constantly like knowing what you want, checking in with yourself, doing whatever taking the action, so important, like actually putting yourself out, taking the risks, doing the things, but then also having a blast doing it, having fun and not being stressed about it. you
Yeah.
know? And for me, that's always the trick to actually achieving the things
Yeah.
is the minute it starts to be like feeling stressed and pressured and heavy and like, is it ever going to happen? And maybe it's never going to happen. It's kind of like, I've lost it. I've lost it. Like, I'm not in faith anymore. I'm not in trust. I'm not like in that mode where magical things happen.
Yeah.
It's so, I don't know if this is answering your question,
It
but this
is.
for me is like,
No, Keep going.
This for me is what it's all about. You know, when you go like ambition and mindfulness, it's like, you know, it's these, you know, actually it comes to yoga, right? And yoga, like the Yoga Sutras, which is the ancient text of yoga, there's actually only one sutra that's about positions, asanas, and it says Sthira Sukha Asanam, right? Which means in Sanskrit, the asana, the position, is both firm and soft, right? Or it's masculine and feminine. It's like active and passive, right? And that's it. You know, so you have like, you know, maybe ambition and drive, and then you also have like just gentleness and, you know, and receptivity, right? And it's, I think the whole thing in life is finding your balance between those. And I feel like when you find that balance and you find your like little, you know, just that place in the middle where you're just like in that flow with your own life, that's when you just unlock wildly great things.
Yeah. Yeah. That was incredible. So my next question,
Fun to talk about.
I think it's a big question. I
Mm,
heard you say, um, within failures there are successes and successes in failures.
mm,
Um, and so I wonder what some of your successes that you had that felt like failures to you. And part of the reason why I'm asking that is because I ran a Kickstarter campaign for the second issue of my comic book. And the first Kickstarter campaign I did, I had like 250 backers. We raised like $6,700. It was super successful. My second one, it was like 140 backers. We raised like $3,400, and I walked away. It succeeded. I met the goal. I exceeded the goal, but I walked away from it talking to myself as if I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I didn't do as good as I was supposed to do. Um, and so I just wondered when I heard you say that quote, I just wonder if there are any successes that you've had that you walked away from and you said that really was a failure for me.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. You know, first of all, I think, you know, just what you described, that thing where we have success once doing something and
Mhm.
we sort of then want to repeat it. Like the success that we achieve, it feels to me always, you know, it comes from like when we are, like I said, locked into that, you know, that magical mode where we're really in a dance and there's like a creativity flowing through us, which is always based in trust. And I always think like you know, the essential element is some sort of trust, right? Because there's an excitement, there's this like fun feeling about it, even if there's some fear too, but it's really trust is the dominant one. Whereas often when we try and do something for a second time, it's like we've done it once and now we're like, and now there's like a little bit of pressure on us, or, you know, or, and also a little bit of expectation. And there's also, you know what I mean? And there's like all these other things at play. And I've definitely had that sort of experience. You know, I think like for me, for instance, doing my second film, I don't know, would people say that was a success? You know, the film, so my first film, we made it for like 100 and, I mean, really we made it for like 120,000, 125,000, and then we got some extra money to finish it and get it into, you know, it played at Sundance to actually take it there and stuff. So it ended up being about 140. My next film was like a 1.5 million, you know, which is like what everybody says you want, right? Like, you know, it's 10 times the amount,
Right.
right? And it's got movie stars in it. It's got Jessica Biel and Harry Hamlin and things, right? And it's like my first movie had my friends in it, you know? and so on paper, is that a success, you know?
Mm,
But when I was doing it, it really felt like I was just failing because I didn't feel like I was making the movie that I wanted to make,
mm,
you
mm,
know? Like like the whole idea of success and failure, just they're deceptions, you know? They feel to me like deceptions. There's just, I mean, there's really just this flow, and you're just, you know, like do the things. I mean, for me, success is, you know, getting to do what you want to do, how you want to do it.
yeah.
Because that's my values, right? You know, it's actually not having more money and movie stars and I don't know, a bigger profile or something, you know?
Right. Right.
Like real success for me is actually like getting to make what you want to make, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think though, as artists, the thing is, and as humans, not just as artists, but as humans, you know, everything that we do when we take certain kinds of actions that have some sort of risk, and if we're not taking those kind of actions, we're just not living. But if we're taking any sort of action that has a bit of risk, that we could succeed or we could fail, we can get the result that we want or we don't get the result we want. That's kind of in a way what success and failure is. You know, I've got to the point where I just go like, you know, labeling success or failure doesn't help anyone. You know, like I'm in a place where I just go like, okay, and I try to do this as quickly as I can. If I'm not getting the result that I want, you know, I'm taking an action, not getting the result that I want, I'm immediately kicking myself into the gear of what am I meant to learn here then? Right? Like, you know, what am I meant to learn? And yeah, what are the lessons here? You like is it like, am I out of alignment in some way? Is this really what I want? Because I find often if I'm not getting the thing that I think I want, sometimes I realize it's not actually what I want. The universe is protecting me from it because it's not what I want, you know? You know, it's really kicking into that. But I just like this binary idea of success and failure anyway, it just is an illusion to me. It's just not real, you know?
Yeah. And I think that was going to be a part of my next question as well, but I think you answered it there, right? Like, what do you do? What would you tell people in the midst of quote unquote failure? But the reality is, like you said, if we recognize that success and failures are illusions, then it's what are the lessons here, right? What do I need to
Yeah.
learn to get a different result? You know what I mean?
And to be fair, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, there might not be that much for you to learn. There might just be something for you to grieve, you know, to be like, honestly, as an artist, I feel like we suffer so many rejections. We have so many things that don't work out. We're going to always have, I mean, if you're a screenwriter or a filmmaker, you're going to have more things that don't work out than do work out, you know? And knowing that that's the gig, like that's the nature of what we do helps a lot. And knowing that sometimes, like occasionally, I think, you know, you can go through it. And I think it's always important when you don't get a result that you want and you are grappling with that and you're frustrated or something. It's like, okay, are there any lessons for me to learn? And sometimes once you've squeezed the lessons out of it, you know, make sure that you actually process whatever grief you have or sticky feelings you have around it. It's really important, you know, that we don't hold on to shame or guilt or regret or, you know, like that's like that we're carrying that forward. We've got to just like, you know, shit's going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong a lot, you know? And it's okay.
I heard you say this in an interview. Clearly, I did a lot of research.
Yeah, I know. I'm intrigued.
You said, I do things that I think are impossible. You remember saying this? Do you remember saying this?
I don't specifically, but I do. I mean, I would concur with that. Yeah.
You said, I do things that I think are impossible, and then I want to share them and show to other people that it's not impossible and you can do them too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You said that's part of why you became a yoga teacher.
Completely.
That's why you started to do the workshops for screenwriters.
Yep.
Where does this passion for other people come from? Because you could easily just say, I'm just going to take this knowledge, I'm going to take this and I'm going to just keep doing it for myself. But for you to say, I'm going to share this with other people, where does that come from?
I don't know. You know, it's a funny thing, bro, isn't it? Like, it's just like, you know, I've thought about this a lot lately about like why some people don't seem to care about other people. Like, I don't understand that. Like, for me, the whole point of being human is together we rise, you know? And, you know, I think maybe for myself, you know, so much of my life, I just felt like such an outsider. And also like, you know, I don't know if you know, but I moved around a lot when I was a kid and I was an outsider, like most places that I lived. And, you know, I lived in Japan and Australia and Germany as a child, you know, it's a lot when I think back to it. And that created a certain resilience. It created also like a real adaptability and also a connection with like all people, you know, because I really feel like a citizen of the world. And I just love humans, you know?
Yeah.
And I think though, because things were so hard for me, like I started my journey as an artist and a creative and just as an adult with like zero self-confidence, you know? And so like, you know, it's that funny thing that when I do achieve something, like I immediately want to like try to pick up anyone else who, you know, might be feeling like that or have felt like that and go, shit, you know, like who knew? You know,
Right.
'cause I think like I've said this about the yoga thing. Like I was the least flexible person. Like I really grew up with this thing that I was like not flexible. And when I started doing yoga, and then like 6 months later I could do the splits, I'm like, oh my god, you know. And
Yeah.
I know I become like a little evangelical sometimes with things like this. You know, like I was like a born again yogi for a little while. You know, till I
Right, right.
was. You know, and probably with screenwriting and filmmaking because I get excited about something. I'm like, could I do this? You know, and then I apply myself. And, when I suddenly create a miraculous result, it blows my mind. And why would I not want everyone else to realize that it's possible? Like, it's like, dude, I've gone through 20 years or 30 years or wherever, however many years it is, thinking that this is a nut that I cannot crack. And
Mm,
it's like, oh, I just cracked it. Who knew? Like, it's not impossible,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know where it comes from, but for me, I don't understand people that don't want to like, I mean, right now,
Yeah.
living in America right now, you're like, what's wrong with some people? Like what?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Um,
mean, we were born that way, bro. We're just born. We're
we're
born
born.
carers,
Yeah,
like,
for sure. So you mentioned stories, and this is my last question before we go to our last segment and we get out of here. Um, you mentioned the story. Well, you mentioned doing the splits, and you mentioned the progression you made in yoga. And in the interview that I watched, you also brought that up. And one of the things you said was you was telling yourself stories.
Mhm.
I'm not flexible. I can't do this. And then you achieve those things you were telling yourself, that you couldn't do. And you realize they were just stories. And so I wonder, right now in your life, what stories are you telling yourself?
Ah, I try to be vigilant now, and this is part of mindfulness, right? This is why we practice meditation to
Yeah.
see what stories we're telling ourselves. Because when you're sitting in meditation, people have the illusion that meditation is about turning off thoughts. And I'm like, it's
Right.
not turning off the thoughts, it's becoming aware of the thoughts, right?
Right.
Like creating a distance so you can actually observe the thoughts. And most of us are not observing our thoughts and we're just being dragged along by them.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to tell myself some new stories, like I try to catch the stories that are not serving me. And this is
Mm,
always sort of my thing now is okay, what is it that I really want? And what stories am I telling myself about why I cannot do it?
mm,
Right. And there's always some stories in us that like there's something going on that, you've left it too late. Right.
yeah.
Or, people like you don't do that, or it's never going to work, or whatever. Like, I am not superhuman. I think those things too. Right. You know what I mean? Like, those are stories that come into my consciousness, just like everybody else's. And so I work with those. And that's the thing. Right. So when I notice that I'm telling myself a story where it's like, oh, you'll probably never get this made, like you're working on your script, and those voices just spring up for me. It's like, you're never going to get this made. And then I'll just go, oh, wait. Okay. That's an interesting little story there. Like, why am I telling myself that story? Why not tell myself a different story? Why not tell me the story? Of course, I'm going to get this made. Of course, this is going to be the best film that I've made. Of course, this is going to be like the most incredible film that's going to have the hugest impact. Like start telling myself another story. And I honestly think like managing your stories, like becoming aware of the stories that you tell yourself is one of the most empowering things you can do.
Absolutely.
And recognizing that truly they are just stories. Even things that you like, I mean, because I think that was the thing for me about like doing the splits and being like not flexible. It sounds like all silly, but it really cracked me open, my mind, because it was such a part of my identity. Like, I am not flexible, right? Like,
Right.
I'm like my mother, because my mother used to always say to me, you're just like me, you're not flexible. And
Mm,
and that was like, it was part of I thought it was part of my identity.
yeah.
And that's like, okay, it's not. And nothing really is. Like
Mm,
everything that you think is like, and I hear people say like, oh, well, I'd really like to, like sell my script, but I'm really too shy. I'm not good in the room. I'm like, I'm not good in the room. Says who? Like, that's who you've been in the past. Maybe you've had those experiences before, but who could you be? Like, what
yeah.
is possible for you? Like, if you got rid of that story and actually learned some skills, practice some new things. I
Right.
didn't suddenly wake up being able to do the splits. I got on the yoga mat every single morning, 6 days a week, for close to a year before I could do it.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't happen out of nowhere. There was like dedication and discipline and hard work to make it happen. And I just like anything that we want to do, if we really want to do it, we can.
Yeah.
So that's a long way of saying, yeah, I've got my negative stories. Like right now, because I'm writing, those stories come up for me. So I'm working with my stories. I'm like, even I was like back to my old favorite. I'm a talented and prolific screenwriter.
Mm.
That's the story I'm telling myself. It's like,
Yeah.
choose your stories, even if it sounds like crazy. Just choose whatever you want to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay. One last question. I think this might be a fun one. You recently moved to the States
Mhm.
from Spain, and I know you love your ocean swims, right?
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if you're near the ocean now.
I am. I'm really close to the ocean.
Okay.
That's why I chose to live in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
I was
still
just at the beach yesterday. Yeah.
okay. So you still jumping in the ocean. You
I'm
still doing
swimming in the ocean I
oh,
swim in the
perfect.
ocean. Yes, a lot. For me, like, just on my, like, what inspires me, like being in the sea inspires me. Like
Yeah.
that's my mother. Like I feel like when I swim in the sea or the ocean, I just feel like I've come home to my mother, and she holds me. I just
Yeah.
float in the sea and I feel held and I'm like, everything is going to be fine.
For sure. For sure. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this one last segment. We're gonna get out of here. This is called the one. It's basically like 5 like rapid fire.
Okay.
Sometimes they're not super rapid fire
I
because
know.
people
I've
like to
got a
answer.
slow brain.
It's all good though. What's one book you think everybody should read? Or you can do movie. You could do what's one movie you think everybody should watch?
Oh gosh. One movie I think everybody should
Like
watch.
if you had to screen a movie for the
Yeah.
whole world, and it's like this is the movie that I'm gonna screen for y'all.
Oh,
What's that?
okay, that's kind of an interesting question. One movie that I don't know. I'm like, sorry, I told you to be slow.
Oh, you good. You
Like,
good.
I don't have a quick response to that.
I know it's a
I'm
big
thinking if
question.
it was like one movie for everybody in the world to watch. I'm trying to think of something that would actually really, like slow down and open people's hearts, because I
Mm,
feel like if I had one movie to show everybody in the world, like it's something that would really crack people open. I'm gonna need to think about that. I'm trying to
well, yeah,
think. I'm not great at like thinking of things off the top of my head. I just
cool.
immediately think of like the last films that I saw or something,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm like, I don't know.
it's all good.
Yeah.
I wonder how the rest of these questions are gonna go.
I
Uh,
know.
what,
That's a fail.
uh,
I'm really
what's
bad for doing that kind of thing. Go on.
this is not your failure. This is my failure, not your
No,
failure.
no,
My,
no.
uh,
I'll keep thinking about the movie in the background.
okay. What's one word you want to describe your legacy?
Mm. I mean, the one word that comes to mind is just is love and freedom. So it's 2 words.
Love and freedom.
Freedom.
You just a rule breaker.
Freedom. Freedom's my highest value in life, and I just want all people to be free.
Now, it's not ironic. It's not lost on me that
Mm,
you're from Scotland and
mm,
freedom is your word.
I
Anyway,
know.
carry on.
Yeah.
Um, what is one thing that you would change about your creative journey?
I would have got started earlier.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Um,
Mm.
what is one thing that you want everyone who hears this or sees this to take away from this conversation?
To know that whatever they dream of is possible.
Mm.
And the thing that will stop them more than anything is themselves. So do the work that we're talking about. Notice the stories you're telling yourself and start telling different stories, like become mindful of your own thoughts and manage your thoughts. Mm.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Diane. Are there any things you want to plug? Anything you want to let anybody know about? The floor is yours if you want to tell.
No, thank you. But yeah, just connect with me. I'm usually Instagram. I've sort of like taken a bit of a hiatus over the last 6 months because I was working on these documentaries. But I'm complete with that work for the moment, like as of just a couple of days ago. So I will be back on Instagram more often. So connect with me there at Shoot from the Heart 1. And, that's it really. Hang out
Well,
with me on Instagram.
I gotta tell y'all, I don't know if this interview or this conversation has done justice to how incredible Diane is. I mean, this is an incredible woman that I've had the pleasure of learning from. And when I talk about you, I call you my mentor. I say my mentor is
Mm.
incredible. And I just appreciate you, Diane, and just, the way you've created, like you talked about, you being an outsider and wanting to create spaces for people. You absolutely opened up a space for me to feel like I belonged, and you really changed my life, Diane. So I just really appreciate you. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming on tonight and kicking it with me and chopping it with me.
Bro,
And
I would chat with you anytime. I said to you before, like from the moment I met you, I'm just like, I just love you. Like, you've just got great energy. And, I have, yeah, it's just an absolute pleasure. I could hang out with you anytime. And I'm always here rooting for you. And anything I can do to, yeah, support you, I'm in. And this is what it's about in life.
for
So
sure.
just if I could just share one tiny little last
Yeah,
story.
do your
My
thing.
my manager Dan Halstead recently said to me, and he's just this amazing guy. He's like really a Hollywood player on one hand, like he was a producing partner for Oliver Stone, and he's the manager of like Taika Waititi and Catherine Hardwicke and stuff. So he's like, he's been around the business for a long time. But he said
Yeah.
this friend of his said to him recently, he said, Dan, what do you think it is? The journey or the destination?
Mm.
And Dan was like, he said, I was like, this friend's always got a catch. But I said, okay, it's the journey. And he goes, no. And he said, okay, it's the destination. And his friend goes, nah. And he goes,
Yeah.
okay, what is it then? And he said, it's the people.
It's the people. Yeah.
And it just like that just landed in me so deeply. And I just go truly in with all my heart. I'm like, that is it. It's the people, and you're one of my people. I hope I'm one of yours. And it's like whatever we can do to help each other always. And I just say to everybody, like we get often on our path, like, how do I get ahead? What do I need to do? One of the biggest things you can do is just like support other people,
Yeah.
support other artists, promote them, help them, do whatever you can. We're in this together. The more that we support each other, the stronger we all are, and together we rise. And that's really like one of my mottos, as you probably know, together we rise. That's it. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Ro.
Well, thank you, Diane. I love you, Diane. To everybody else who watched, thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, share this with somebody, and I will see y'all soon. And you already know I love you. Peace.